I first saw Jacques Tati's Playtime when it came out in 1967 in Paris. I don't know why, my wife and I happened to be there, and we saw it in this wonderful cinema near the Arc de Triomphe. And I can remember just before the film started, they showed this trailer for 70mm, and the whole end wall of the cinema lit up, and the picture filled the end wall. And they had these stunning shots going over New York or something. And I remember saying to my wife, I said, I don't know why they're showing us this, because I mean, Playtime's not going to be in 70mm. But of course it was in 70mm. And Tati designed the film to be seen in 70mm. He used the sound so it panned not only from left and right, but it also panned up and down. And he had these very long shots that sometimes on the video seem a bit too long because you're not seeing all the detail. But on a big screen, on a big 70mm screen, you see every detail that's going on. And that's why in this film you tend not to get many close-ups. Another personal connection with the film is that a great friend of mine, Richard Boston, acted as Jacques Tati's stand-in and double for Monsieur Hulot in the film. In fact, the very first time that Monsieur Hulot appears in the airport, it isn't Jacques Tati, it's my friend Richard Boston. There he is, you can see him there, dropping his umbrella. But it was all part of Tati teasing the audience with what he called faux Hulots, that is, false Monsieur Hulots. And all the way through the film, you keep glimpsing people that you think are Mr. Hulot, and it's not. And it's Tati just teasing his audience. And it's partly because he was phasing Hulot out of the film. Hulot does appear in Playtime, but only peripherally. And there's much more concentration on the buildings and the other characters. Richard told me the story that he was acting as Tati's double, which would mean when Tati was directing, Richard was wearing the raincoat and the hat and the pipe so that he would walk around and do what Monsieur Hulot was meant to be doing. And then when they came to take the take, he would have to give the hat and the umbrella and the pipe to Jacques Tati. And he said, you'd imagine in such an expensive production, they could have afforded to have another set of clothes. He even had to take his socks off and give Tati his socks. Playtime starts where Mon Oncle left off. In Mon Oncle, you saw Monsieur Hulot's world, the old world, being demolished to make way for the new. In Playtime, the old world has been totally destroyed and gone. And you only catch glimpses of it as reflections in doors or in windows. Occasionally you open a door and you catch a glimpse of the Eiffel Tower. And you have these American tourists visiting Paris in order to find Paris, and all they ever see is these reflections or photographs of the real thing. Reality, Monsieur Hulot's reality in Playtime has been shrunk to a flower stall, and the rest is this sterile modern world of concrete and steel and glass. Seeing the film 30 years after I last saw it, I was actually struck by the fact that it is a terrific achievement as a piece of filmmaking. It's a tour de force about modern architecture. It's a symphony around mankind being lost in structures of his own contriving. Tati was meticulous in his planning of the making of Playtime. It took him something like 10 years to get it set up because he had difficulty in funding it, and it was the most expensive film ever made in France at the time when it was made. All the modern buildings, the modern town, he constructed as set. A hugely expensive thing to do. And I suppose, in a way, for that reason, the film was a failure insofar as it didn't make its money back, and it actually helped to make Tati bankrupt. But although the film might have been a financial failure, it's still full of wonderful gags. I keep on thinking about the restaurant and the fish that keeps getting put in front of the couple and never gets eaten, and it keeps getting salt put over the top of it and sauce over it, but it never gets given to them. There's also the wonderful moment when the workman comes up and asks the doorman if he could light his cigarette, and the doorman says yes, but then points out that they're both standing on either side of a huge plate glass window, so they both have to walk down to the door so that he can light his cigarette. And in a way, that little gag embodies the alienation of this modern world that Tati is talking about in the film. Playtime is actually a little bit alienating itself. Because it's talking about the alienating of the modern world, sometimes its effect on the audience is slightly alienating. There's a wonderful sequence in which Monsieur Hulot visits an old friend in his apartment, and the entire visit, which goes on for about 10 minutes, is seen from the street. So you never hear anything that's said in the apartment. All you hear is the street noise. Now in 70mm, this sequence worked superbly, because sometimes you saw 4 windows, these plate glass windows in this apartment, and what was going on in one apartment was echoed in another apartment. Actually, there's a wonderful bit after Monsieur Hulot leaves where the master of the house sends his women off and then starts taking his coat off. And the woman in the other apartment is watching the television, but it looks like she's watching him doing a striptease. The whole thing is a most amazing piece of comic choreography. Oh yes, and there's another wonderful moment when Monsieur Hulot breaks the door of the restaurant. Though for the rest of the evening, this very smart restaurant, they've got the door handle, and they keep pretending the door's there, just opening it and letting people in, and nobody notices whether the plate glass is there or isn't there. Again, it's almost a metaphor for what's going on in the world. The film's full of wonderful visual gags, and it's a terrific achievement as a piece of filmmaking. It's certainly the most ambitious expression of Tati's genius. So I hope you enjoyed Playtime.